So the way it works is when you yes and somebody, so it's yes, comma, and when you yes and somebody, you are acknowledging what they just said as truth, as their truth. That's the yes. And the and is what you add on top of it. This basically prevents conversations from being one-sided, and it keeps the ball rolling constantly.
Welcome to the Business Ownership Podcast, brought to you by Awareness Strategies, helping you navigate the waters between entrepreneurship and ownership. Hey there, peeps. This is Michelle Nedelec, and I'm super glad that you're here with us today because I'm here with the most amazing guest, Chris. Chris, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me, Michelle. Let's do this.
Awesome. So give everybody kind of the 5,000-foot view of who you are and what you do for business.
Yeah, so my name is Chris Trew. I've had just about every job you could possibly have in the comedy world, from performing to producing to writing to headlining festivals, running festivals, submitting to festivals, every possible job. And what I do now is use comedy techniques to help people be more charismatic and confident communicators. I still perform. I still manage a brick and mortar comedy club, but I also use comedy techniques to help entrepreneurs, to help small business owners, to help people who are just getting started in business, public speakers, all kinds of stuff.
Awesome. So how did you get into comedy as a thing?
Yeah, my introduction to doing comedy was I wanted to be a hidden camera show actor when I was a kid. And I didn't know how to get that job. So I started working on movies and TV sets here in New Orleans. And then I started asking around. And then I found out that everyone who does that, who gets that gig, they all start with improv. They all do improv comedy. So then I started taking improv classes. And then I completely fell in love with improv as an art form and a way of just self-improvement. And I have not stopped doing improv and teaching improv since then. So it started with the dream of being on a hidden camera show.
That is awesome. And we'll get into all of that in a minute. Because when you said that, I was thinking, so you hired your friend to go and hide behind a bush. That would have been totally fun. So you mentioned that improv is a way of personal development. And I've heard that a lot from a lot of people. So how does that all work? Because it seems like a huge little leap of faith in there.
Yeah, I totally get that. And I'm glad you asked, because I think the more you learn about it, the more you realize it's not actually that big of a leap of faith. But if you're coming from nothing, I get it. So here's the nuts and bolts of it. It's like when you do an improv comedy show, what you are relying on is not everyone being the most hilarious person. That actually is exhausting. What you're relying on is communication that promotes positive creativity. You're looking for communication that is that's displaying expert listening skills and building off of each other. And when funny people who know each other do that, the result is something that is in the moment and oftentimes extremely funny. So when you take the comedy parts out of that and you put it into business, or like brainstorming or dealing with conflict or just teamwork, it's like you want these same skills. You want to prioritize listening. You want to make each other look good. You want to put the team before yourself. You want to build off of each other. And so the same things that make an improv comedy show successful also make working with collaboration successful, working with a team, starting a business, because you want to be in the moment. You want to be present. You don't want to be clutching on to your ideas like this. You want to hold them like this and be open-minded, be ready to evolve and change in the moment on the fly. I mean, it sounds like I'm describing running a business, but I'm just actually describing both. I'm describing running a business and doing an improv comedy show.
Fun. So are you working with individuals? Are you working with teams as well, or just teams, or who do you work with, and how does that look?
Yes. So for years, it was primarily individuals. It was people who would come to my business and they would say, I want to learn improv comedy for whatever reason. Some of them were wanting to do comedy. They wanted to be a famous comedian. They wanted to be on Saturday Night Live or whatever. But a lot of my people were just public speakers, or some people who heard that this is a great way to meet new people. So for the longest time, it was mostly individuals. Past 5-6 years, I've opened myself to working with groups. in businesses way more, and that part of my business has exploded in a really beautiful way, because the word's out now, right? Like a lot of companies are like, how do we do team building events that aren't boring? How do we how do we like change things up? How do you know, a lot of entrepreneurs are like, how do I inspire my team and do something fun for them that they haven't done a billion times before? And so they find me, and we do something really special, you know, because I really I think one improv class can really change a lot for a business. So
Right.
multiple improv classes is a big change.
That was awesome. So do they all go down to you and they're there, or do you go to their offices, or can you do it virtually? How does that all work?
Yeah, lucky for me, it's all the above, right?
Nice.
Also lucky for me, I live in New Orleans, Louisiana, big tourist town. A lot of conventions happen here. So so a lot of people are in New Orleans, and they say, what can we do that's fun, that's not just a bar crawl, you know? And so a lot of times they'll find me and they'll come to the club. But really, Michelle, I've been getting a lot of people bringing me out too. Like someone just hears about it and they're like, oh, they're just not flinching at the idea of like, oh, you live in New Orleans, my event is in Denver. Okay, well, can you come October 2nd to 3rd? And I'm like, yeah,
Yes,
I would love that.
Right. Well,
And
I can imagine for them it's a lot cheaper to bring you in than it is to bring their entire team down to you. So it just totally
totally
makes sense, right?
Yeah, it definitely makes sense, but it's still very charming to me, you know, because I just love what I do so much. And I you know, I know what I do has a value, and I know it's transformative for a lot of people. But still, even when someone's like, yeah, the event's in San Francisco, so we're gonna need you to come out here, I'm like, that's amazing. That's amazing. So I'm still so tickled by it, even though it's been going on for years and years. I just love it so much. But also
awesome.
the final part of your question, virtually, I'm so grateful that this works virtually, because I had to admit I was a little slow to it. When I got the first couple of opportunities to do it virtually, I thought this is not going to work, and I was so wrong. I was so wrong, because I have found a lot of people are more likely to open up on a Zoom call. You know, I've been in these rooms with a business that brings me in, and I see this 4 or 5 people who are like giving me the body language. It's like, do not call on me. I will not be getting up. And they don't do that on a Zoom call. You know, they just like click the unmute button, and so they give themselves more of a chance, and beautiful things have happened as a result of that. So I'm in a good place. I'm very lucky that it works in all kinds of mediums.
Nice. Well, before we get into some examples, I want to know, have you had your fan moment yet where somebody goes, oh my God, you're Chris Trew?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of different ways, because like again, I'm lucky because I have used improv to land other gigs, and you know, so like perhaps most notably, like here in New Orleans, I'm a big basketball fan here, and I had a sports podcast that eventually got picked up by the basketball, like the NBA teams, like the Pelicans were like, hey, do your podcast for us. And then I ended up like interviewing players. Every now and then people would be like, you're that dude from that. That was a ton of fun. That went on for a few years, but yeah, you know, it's cool. And you know, I'm on stage as often as possible here in New Orleans too, so maybe some stuff happens every now and then from that.
Maybe. Awesome. So give us some examples, some Cinderella stories of people that have been kind of in their shell, or businesses that were dysfunctional, and after working with you, kind of what their aftermath was.
Yeah, so yeah, probably my favorite story. There's someone who came to us because he thought he was kind of funny. He was interested, but he wasn't there to learn comedy. He was there to learn communication, because he was like, yeah, I have a really hard time talking to girls. And it was like, oh, that's really interesting. I like, this is not like, well, we do not promote it like, have problems like flirting, take an improv class. Like, that's not really part of our business model, you know? But this guy came to us and he was just like, yeah, I could use some help with this, and I think this might help me. Cut to like 4 years later. I mean, I think his like dating life is definitely like he's happy. But the Cinderella story here is that this dude has a weekly comedy show now, one of the funniest people in the city. He's like he draws people, like he just says anything on stage and people just lose it. But he's just like he found something. He
Yep.
didn't come to improv because he was trying to be a famous comedian, but he's one of the best improvisers in this entire city, and people just love his style. And he's not he never started it because he wanted to pursue comedy. And so people like that, I mean, that happens enough times where it's like it just makes me feel really strongly about what we're doing here, and like that this is such a good tool that if you open yourself up to it, you don't know where it'll take you.
I love that, because I think, you know, when we get in touch with our own quirkiness, even in communication and in business, well, which of course starts with communication, because whether you're doing your marketing or your sales or whatever, when we get in touch with our own quirkiness, though, we become more enticing, we become more fun, we become more enduring to other people, and they just want to be around that. And I think especially now, in order to stand out from the crowd of sameness, we have to get in touch with that quirkiness. Like it's
Yeah,
essential to the survival of our business.
absolutely. And not only that, but I think that everyone has it in them, has some of it in them. You just might have need more help accessing it, right? It's like when people come to one of my classes and I ask everyone to say like, what brought you here, or what are you hoping to gain from this? It's funny because the people who struggle the most are the
Mhm.
ones who tell me that, well, they've always been the funny one in their group of friends. They've always been the funny ones. Now they want to like do it for real. Those people oftentimes have a much more difficult journey of taking notes and learning the lessons and being patient. They oftentimes like steamroll over the people they're performing with. And it's like the tiniest, shyest people, tiny meaning like their confidence, you know, it's like those people have like when they open themselves up to it, they like act like they learn this skill that accesses this part of them that was always there, that they just didn't, no one ever told them they were funny, or they never had the opportunity to you know, to practice having a perspective in the moment. And it's like, oh, they're actually pretty good at it. And so my point is just, I love that so many people think that you can't learn this stuff, that you're either born with it, either have it or you don't. But what you don't realize is that everyone has some of it in there. You just might need some help. You might need someone like me to help like move some of those boulders out of your way and then like put you on a fast track. But it's there. It's there for everybody.
Well, and that's one of the things I love about comedy is everybody is funny. Everybody is funny. And they have, in my experience, if they learn to laugh with it instead of feeling like they're being laughed at, then it just opens up something fantastical. I mean, you can have somebody with a wicked dry sense of humor that has never cracked a smile in their life, and they're like roll on the floor hilarious. You know, even my dad tells stories and he's not meaning to be funny, but we're all killing ourselves laughing. Like, do you have any idea what you just said? So
Yeah,
is
it's all about context too, right? It's like you tell me this story and it's like, well, that's like, okay, that's kind of entertaining, but you're like, no, this happened at the convenience store. It's like, whoa, that's
now it's
crazy. Or
funny.
you're like, or like someone said this, and I'm like, okay, and you're like, no, that was my priest or whatever. It's like, whoa. So it's all about context, and that's a skill you can learn in an improv class. You
Right.
can learn how to play with that, and also I think one of the big things you learn in an improv class, that you really learn this day one, it's hard to wrap your head around it often, but you learn that the truth is funnier than what you can make up. So it's like that's why someone's like pretending to fall like on a banana peel is
Yep.
like, okay, it's like it's awkward. Like when you watch that video on YouTube or TikTok, you're like, oh, this is staged. And you're like, oh, you're kind of bummed. But like the actual video of someone like actually drop this thing, I mean, maybe it's also sad, but it's like there's like the honest reaction.
Yep.
That is what's funny. So you learn truth in comedy. You learn that just be truthful, be this character, be this character's truth, and
Yep.
don't try so hard to be funny because it won't work. And that's what I tell everyone in one of my business improv classes. I'm like, I have great news for all of y'all. The great news here is that no one is expected to be funny. Like if you come into this thinking that you have to bring the house down, you're going to have a hard time and it's not going to work. Just please be yourself. I'll help you out. And when people believe me and meet me halfway on that, it goes so well.
That's awesome. I'm loving it. So what was one of the kind of most hilarious groups that you had, or just one of the ones that struck you as I never would have saw that coming?
Okay. I have two answers for this. One, I always have to give a shout out to there was a funeral home like convention, and they brought me in to do improv at this funeral home convention here in New Orleans, and they were like extremely lively and
Oh,
like
hilarious.
full of energy. And I was like, okay, well, shame on me for going into that thinking that it was not going to be that. Like as if everyone who works for a funeral home is already dead inside. It's like, no, it's
They're
actually the
hilarious.
opposite.
Yeah.
But the other group I have to give a shout out to is so there's a social media agency in San Diego named Casual Fridays. Or they used to be in San Diego, but or whatever. But they had a convention down here in New Orleans and brought me in to teach them an improv class. And the class was like supposed to be 2 hours. We ended up going for 3.5 or something like that. It was so much fun. I am still friends with everyone from that class. Multiple people from that company have like splintered off and done their own thing. They've all hired me to go and do improv for their new companies. It's like it was such a beautiful, exciting class, and everyone was just like everyone there was nervous. Everyone was like, what are we doing? Why? Because their boss didn't tell them. Their boss was like, we're doing something fun in New Orleans. So maybe they thought they were going on like a cemetery tour, or they were going on like a
Escape room.
escape room. It's like, no, they instead they wanted to escape my room because it was an improv class. But they all super fell in love with it. Some of them started pursuing improv on their own. It was just such a beautiful, lovely. I loved them. Casual Fridays was definitely one of the most playful, fun experiences I've ever had as a teacher.
Awesome. So are there any kind of fundamentals that you can share with us that people can use to just start getting
Yeah,
a little more relaxed or whatever it might be?
for sure. So the easiest one I'm going to share this with you right now. Okay, it's we're actually going to do this. So the most basic building block here that everyone has to learn, no matter your experience, no matter how comfortable you are with making things up on the spot, is this idea of yes and. Have you heard of this?
Yep.
So the way it works is when you yes and somebody, so it's yes, comma, and. When you yes and somebody, you are acknowledging what they just said as truth, as their truth. That's the yes. And the and is what you add on top of it. This basically prevents conversations from being one-sided, and it keeps the ball rolling constantly. And we basically been conceptually yes-anding this entire time on this interview, which I would hope so, because you have a bunch of podcasts and I've been on a bunch of podcasts, and we should be good at this, right? But certainly we've all experienced people who are like barely yesing or not even anding. So for example, here's how this works. So if Michelle were to say, Chris, I like your sweater, I could say, hey, thanks. But that's just an acknowledgement of what she said. That's just saying yes. Then ideally I respond, I with more information so that she can respond to that with more information, and it keeps going. So if she were to say, Chris, I like your sweater, I could be like, yes. And, I got it. I actually got it on sale last Black Friday. She might say, yes, and I'm excited about the deals for this year's Black Friday. And I'm like, yes, and we should actually combine efforts on clipping coupons for the whatever, blah, 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 blah. So it's like it builds off of each other as opposed to just saying thank you, or like, yes, it is nice, or yes, I like yours too. Yes, and provides these building blocks to keep adding things. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely.
So let's actually do one together real quick. It's just a few lines, and so every time it's going to be an enthusiastic yes, and then the and
yes
adds to it. Yeah. So why don't you give me the first line here, and I instruct all my students to act. I want this actually to be sort of vague and kind of boring, so that we can show how we make this vague thing something bigger. So I don't want you to think you have to come up with this beautiful
I get to
premise.
not be funny at all, and then you get to make it funny. How's that? Because I'm really liking that that caveat there.
No, it's gonna be back and forth. It's gonna be back and forth. We're doing this together.
I'll totally play back and forth, but you get to be funny. Awesome. So yeah.
So
for those of you who are not on video right now, Chris has an awesome beard. It is a very full, fantastic beard.
So go and watch the video.
Yeah. Absolutely, because you get a lot off the video, including his fantastic sweater that he mentioned earlier.
That's right. All right, so give me that first line of dialogue. Ready?
Oh,
Let's
sorry. I thought we were going already.
Oh, yeah, just keep it really simple, really simple. Just
Okay, I love your beard.
yes, and I have been growing it for like 10 years now.
Wow. That is
Yes.
fantastic. Yes, and I've been growing my hair for 10 years now, and it doesn't look that thick.
Yes, and I think that as long as do your morning meditations, your hair will get just as thick as mine.
Yes, and I have to wonder, why does meditation contribute to hair growth?
So cool. So instead of asking that question, I
All
want
right.
you to make it into a statement.
Okay, yes,
So that I
and
don't have to answer it.
yes, and yes, and I think it's fascinating that your hair grows with meditation.
Yes, and I actually have grown my net worth and my chia pets with meditation as well. I grow everything with meditation.
Yes, and I think it's a lovely morning routine that I could incorporate.
Cool, great. See, so like by you changing it from a question to a statement,
Yes,
that takes me off the hook for having
I need to
to
answer the question.
stay exactly in that lane, and it allows us
Awesome.
to continue to build and add stuff to it. So eventually you compliment my beard and we find out that I'm using meditation for everything, not just my beard, but for my business and for my chia pets and my home and whatever. That's a quick little light example of
Yeah.
using yes and.
Well, and I particularly like that in the beginning, I think, like as I pointed out earlier, to go from, hey, let's do some improv because it'll help with personal development, and there's that, huh? How does that actually work? To being able to understand that it is just a, like any skill, is something that you want to start slowly, take the pressure off. Like you're just here to learn something. And if you walk away having known something more than you knew when you walked in, awesome. And we're gonna, work on that and build on it. And I think that the more comfortable people can be with very uncomfortable circumstances, the more they give themselves the opportunity to be able to learn anything.
Yeah, well said. Totally agree. I love that.
Fantastic. So what do you think some of the stumbling blocks are that a company would have that they're gonna go, Chris, come, we need you. Come fix this.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it is unsure how to diffuse conflict,
Mhm.
in the workspace. So it's like, you know, they'll bring me in to be like, hey, when we disagree on stuff, like it gets out of control quickly. Like we don't have or maybe our meetings or our brainstorming sessions can get a little messy and they're not fun. So using improv to untangle a lot of maybe questionable habits is good, because when I leave an improv session with people, I introduce a concept, we have some fun and we laugh a lot while using it, but then afterwards I'm like, cool, you could say this next time you're in a situation that's like not great for whatever reason, you can say this and it will help you diffuse it. And also everyone in this room is hearing me say this. So it's like if you're like yes anding someone, if you're like literally are saying yes, yes, Nancy, and it might signal that like, oh wait, we're using that technique to help better the situation. So oftentimes it's communication, that's I'm painting with broad strokes here, but usually it's communication. But a lot of times too, a company is just like, we haven't done anything fun in a long time, and I'd like for them to like learn something while having fun. So it's not just like I said before, like a pub crawl. It's like, no, we're gonna laugh a lot. It's gonna be a ton of new inside jokes that are born out of our session here today. But you're also gonna walk away thinking like, oh man, that is a better way of brainstorming.
Well, and I think it would make a great holiday activity for families too. Because I remember as kids, we're trying to explain to my brother, it's like funny is close enough to be funny, but not so close that you dig into their heart and rip it out. Like a little too close.
Yeah, yeah.
I think a lot of times because we're family, that we push the boundaries of communication a little further, a lot further than we would with other people, because we're just trying to express, the hurt, the anguish, the whatever, and we don't necessarily know how to do it in a healthy sort of way. So we go, hey, when you respond the same way I feel, then I know that you're empathizing with me. And it's like, yeah, okay, there's an easier way to do this. One where you don't
Yeah,
kill everybody.
totally. Hey, speaking of empathy too, like that's another just side effect of learning improv, because I think you become way more empathetic because you're considering other people constantly as part of the art form, and you are just like your mindset is like this moment right here with us, not obsessing over the past moment. I'm actually present here with you, so I'm more open to help. Yeah, I'm more open to connecting to you in this moment, and that is something that I think everyone in the world could understand is useful, especially with how often we're all like on our phones. We're all, I mean, all the things. I don't need to go off on a rant, but it's like being present in this moment is a skill that a lot of people are losing, and improv helps you maintain that.
Well, and to kind of wrap that in a bow, I think I'd like you to comment on the idea of humor as a form of meditation, because it's bringing us into the moment. It's doing all these things. You brought it up, so I'm going to play off of it.
Yeah. So look, one of the most curious things people say when describing a joke or a moment is like, you had to be there. They're trying to explain it to someone. It's like, oh, I guess you had to be there. It's like the way to get out of trying to sell it as something that was actually funny. It's like you give up. Like, you just had to be there, whatever. It's like, and there's something so fascinating about that to me, because it's like yeah, being there was like there's no better audience, there's no better moment than being there. So like, how can you use that in other aspects of life? Like, what if you were always, this sounds so crazy, but like, what if you always were where you were and not somewhere else? It's like, you had to be there. Well, I always was there. I've been here because I'm actually in this moment. And I think that comedy is like a common denominator for a lot of people, like, as far as like what they look for in a partner, or like what they like to do. Like, no one really says I don't like laughing. No one says I actually don't. I don't need to laugh today, or like I hope I don't laugh today. So it does unify a bunch of people, but so there's like a language with it. But most people's form of humor is reciting movie quotes, or just like telling the same joke that they heard from someone else over and over again. And improv like corrects all that, in my opinion. Improv makes you actually the funny that you're supposed to be. And so if you combine that with presence, you're no longer saying you had to be there. You actually are funny all the time. You're interesting all the time, and great things will come as a result of that. Whether it's like in your business or your personal life or whatever, like being present and truthful and interesting sounds like anyone could put those things to good use.
Well, and that kind of, again, wraps that bow up in that improv becomes the personal development realm, because you're not relying on external sources of when somebody else was funny, but you're bringing it home to, I have something inside of me that when I bring it out, people appreciate it, like it, and make noises that, yeah, it
Yeah.
implies that they're having fun.
Totally. Now imagine combining that with the room full of people who are all also learning that, and they're also learning how to listen and be present. Now you have an improv class where it's like, wow, everyone is learning how to do this thing, and we're all giving each other the gift of this moment in our attention. So I mean, that's a big reason why I think everyone should experience what it's like to be in a really good improv class. Everyone should know what that feels like, because people are like putting you over, and they're like raising you up because they know you're going to raise them up later. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
That's so sweet. Well, I know our audience is going to want more from you. How did they start their journey with you?
So the thing I would love for people to do is send me a DM on, whether it's Facebook or Instagram. My name is Chris Trew, Trew. That's my handle on all social media platforms. I'm always doing free improv classes. From time to time, I just surprise my audience by being like, hey, I'm doing a free class like this Monday at 7. Here's the link. Of course, I have programs too that are more in depth. I have a group coaching program called Team Hell Yes. that's basically working with me one-on-one once a month and with a group once a month. I do that in person and online, but also businesses can reach out to me, Chris at hellyescreative.com. And I would love to talk about bringing this material to your place of business, because it really is a game changer. And if you're looking for like a secret weapon, if you're looking for like that superfood that like solves a bunch of problems in a business and is fun, then improv might be the thing. I'd love to chat with you more about it.
Love it. Well, I hope it becomes the thing, because I would love to see this in every business and going, yeah, that's just what we do. We do improv. Awesome.
Yeah.
Love it. Chris, I get to ask you, at what point in life did you know that you're a special kind of crazy enough to think that you could become an entrepreneur?
What point in life did I realize that? You know, sometime in college, my parents gave me permission to like drop out of school and pursue comedy as a business as long as I put everything I had into it. And it was like, what they didn't realize, maybe what they did realize, was that I was already putting everything I had into it, which is why I was doing so poorly in school. So I think it was at that moment where I got the green light from Christy and Mike, were like, you know what, go for it. And since then it's been, I've committed to what that means. So like I understand the problems that come along with being an entrepreneur, and I accept those problems. I'd rather have those problems than other problems.
Right. Oh my God, that's awesome. Well, kudos to your parents. That's fabulous. And
Yeah.
I think out of all the hundreds of people that I've interviewed, I think you're the first person that said that they just gave you permission to go and like go do it. And in a comforting sort of way, not, hey, you have 6 months, get your shit together.
Yeah, it was, I realized, I knew it then how cool it was. And every day as I get older and older, I'm just like, that was so cool. That was so cool that they did that.
Oh, I love that. Chris, thank you so much for your time. Any last words for our peeps?
Please rate and review Michelle's podcast. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast, and find me if you like things I said, and let's have a conversation.
Awesome. And thank you for your time. I know how valuable it is.
I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
Peeps, this is Michelle Nedlick. Thank you for being here with us today. Subscribe to the show and share with your friends. We love helping you grow your businesses. Thank you for listening to our show. I'm all about being a resource center for entrepreneurs to give them the information and the support that they need to make it in business. As such, the notes for this show can be found at our website at awarenessstrategies.com/blog. Be sure to subscribe, give us a rating. I like 5 stars personally, and share with your friends.